Welcome to All Things Marketing Podcast, the podcast that talks all things marketing for both franchise and multi-location marketing leaders. ATM is brought to you by PureDriven. We'll show you how to turn your brand into a money-making machine. Here's your host, Steve Rockwood.
Hello and welcome to ATM. My name is Steve Rockwood and I'm the marketing manager at PureDriven. Today we are going to talk about discovering and sharing your business why. I'm once again joined by special guest Christopher Swanson, CEO at PureDriven and head of franchise development. How are we doing today, Chris?
I'm doing awesome, Steve. I'm glad to be back again. This is great. I love your podcast.
Awesome. I love having you here, and I know our audience does as well. So today we're talking about a business why. So Chris, what is a business why?
Well, I'm going to kind of make a shout out for a lot of you who have kind of heard this before. Simon Sinek is somebody I follow. I really think a lot. I don't agree with him 100% all the time, but I think he's got some excellent points. And one of the points he makes is, what's your why? You know, and so often in business, people know what we do. Sometimes they know how we do it, but why are we doing it? And often the why can be completely different than the function that you're doing as a company day in and day out. So for example, we are a digital marketing agency at PureDriven, and we have a why of changing the world by being a role model business. And that is what we call our purpose statement. Some people say, what's your purpose, your passion, your cause? And people say, whoa, that's a lot different than we want to be amazing at digital marketing. And the answer is yes, because when we first got into this business, what we found in the agency world is a lot of agencies struggled by running great agencies. They struggled because they didn't have good processes. They didn't have a tight client experience. When I say tight, what I mean by that is their client experience might have been all over the place. And we heard this from many people that we were looking to work with. We got that feedback as we started PureDriven. And so we said, you know what? Let's be a great agency, or as we say, a great professional firm that does things in a way where other people look at us and say, wow, they do it right. And so from day one, we've been building that in our company. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it really challenges everybody in the organization to say, okay, if we are great, if we're a role model and we do things well, how does the world get changed? And it's always a great why, because it makes people think. It's a big why.
Yeah, and actually what the director of sales and marketing told me about the why statement is it's something that you should never truly be able to attain. You should always just be able to keep growing towards. Is that something that makes sense to you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's always fun because you can put little markers along the way and say, we achieved this. Wow, wasn't that great? Yep. But for us, we just know that we always want to be striving, I guess, is probably the best word, towards that why. We might not ever get there, but it's always exciting to try to achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. So in our case, with trying to change the world by being a role model business, we're not going to change the entire world ever. No one's ever going to change the entire world with their company. However, we are going to change pieces of it and keep growing towards changing more and more and more. So we're not going to reach an absolute goal. We're just going to keep climbing towards it higher and higher.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree to disagree a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Think of an Apple. Think of a Microsoft. Did they change the world? Oh, man. Did they ever? So I think what I heard you saying, just to clarify, is it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
That's what we call a big, hairy, audacious goal. But again, it's exciting. Microsoft said we want a computer on every desk. Wow, back then that was very visionary. And now it's not even a computer on every desk. Of course, now we've gone to all kinds of different devices. But the bottom line is they did make a major dent in the world. But yeah, it's for us, we know it's a 50-year plan, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not going to necessarily happen tomorrow.
Yeah, and actually, just off the top of your head, do you know what Apple or Microsoft's why statement is? I don't know if you know the answer.
I honestly don't know the answer. I know I looked at Apple's mission statement about 3 months ago, and I was thoroughly confused, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was strong.
Yeah.
That might just be me.
Yeah.
Their mission, of course, could be different than their why, but it sometimes is the same in some people's world.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this podcast, make sure to check it out on the PureDriven website, and I will throw a reference to the Apple mission statement so we can all see what it is just to compare, just because I'm interested now as well.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So we know what a why is, but how is a why important to a multi-location business or a franchise?
Well, as I mentioned yesterday in the podcast, I mean, there's more than 3,000 different franchise business companies in the United States, and what keeps your business and your franchises all rolling in the same direction is the question I always ask people. What is kind of that glue that keeps everybody understanding where they're going and rowing and not in a negative way, but simply understanding. And that really is your why. I mean, if your team gets fired up about what your purpose is, your passion, your cause, your team is going to overall want to get to that. And so, again, that gets exciting. It can be very, very big. It can be daunting. It can be a big undertaking. It might not be that big. It depends on who your company is and what they want to do, and leadership and so on. But the bottom line is, everybody in the company should go, wow, that looks awesome. Let's do that.
Definitely. And you always talk about being in a boat with your company and all going the same direction. Can you kind of explain that to us? That's your story.
It's the picture I like to paint for the team. We have a destination, our destination really, I always say, is that island that we're trying to get to, or that location we're trying to get to. And the key is to get everybody in the right seats, to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. In businesses, so often, there's so many people that take that paddle and they're rowing backwards, or they're not rowing in sync and in time with the company, or sometimes they're taking that paddle and just quitting paddling altogether, or shoving that paddle down into the water, which is going to drag and slow you down. Yep. So getting people to row together in unison is a big deal. And companies that figure that out can really do amazing things.
Definitely. And then one thing that's kind of cool about the why is that it doesn't necessarily matter what your company does. So if you had a marketing agency like we do here at PureDriven, but then decided to sell all the equipment on the table for podcasts instead, we decided to be a microphone company one day, the why could still stay the same.
It really could. I mean, what you're talking about is that happens to some businesses. Some businesses get stuck into what they do.
Yep.
And then what happens is, as changes occur, and we've seen that in the railroad industry, we've seen that, of course, in companies that are telecom companies that are looking to become internet. Some of them figured out that they had to adapt, or they were forced to adapt. But the smart companies understand that they're pursuing that why, and so the things that they do can be changed. Now, that's a lot harder when you're talking about a big company that's got shareholders and expectations and different things that go on. But the truth is that if you're looking at that why and you say the best thing we could do is make an adjustment, in the train industry was maybe we focus on passenger. They said, no, let's get out of passenger business. In the telecommunication world, it could have been, we're not going to focus on actually becoming internet service providers. Some companies figured that out and became internet service providers. So, yeah, I mean, if you have a good why, you can make adjustments within what your niche is and what you do day in and day out. If you don't, it becomes very difficult.
Definitely. And that's my final question for it. It kind of leads right in there, is how do you use your why in your marketing and your branding?
Well, I think it's a great discussion point to talk with potential clients. And that, when I say talk with, I mean that is any way you're communicating why you're different in your brand, why you're unique. And I always tell people, make sure you have some unique differentiators that you can talk about. As you get into a discussion with customers, you might not just say, hey, listen, we got this amazing why, and that's why I'm so excited. They might go, oh, okay. They might get excited about it too. I don't know. But the bottom line is if you can communicate that through your brand and what you're doing, and we all know some brands that have done a very good job with that. What happens ultimately is people get excited as a consumer, or if you're doing business-to-business marketing, they get excited just as a business because they're people too, ultimately to kind of get on board. So as you're taking a look at your branding, really be thinking about what differentiates us, why are we here? What is our purpose, our passion, our cause? And that's going to help you as you think through and work through your branding structure.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people that are actually trying to break into an industry when they're trying to get a job will also look at those why statements too, and they'll see if it's something that they want to work for, because they'll look at the why and they'll go, wow, that's really cool. I might be doing this job at the company, but it's going to lead towards this huge end goal, and I relate to it.
Yeah, my function within the organization is actually going to have the ability to impact everybody in a positive way, because instead of walking in and feeling like I'm a number, I'm just part of a system, I'm actually part of this bigger project that we're achieving. We've all been part of maybe a group project in school or something that was really cool, really fun. It was like, wow, that was inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, that can be a business that gets this right. It can be very inspiring to work for that kind of business that really understands its why.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Chris. That was a really nice discussion, and we are going to tie a lot of this stuff together next week here right on ATM. So make sure to join us. I'm sure we will have Chris back on the show, and we will catch you right here next time on ATM.
You just listened to All Things Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch every new episode every day. Want to be a guest on the show? Sign up at puredriven.com/guest. See you tomorrow here at the ATM.